zone after writing jazz for a few months. I ran across a book called Getting Up that a friend of mine let me look at, and the whole thing just spoke to me like it's something I needed to be doing, even though I was horrible. The first time I ever saw graffiti was on Welcome Back, Kotter. When the train goes by, you can see the pieces there. And I was thinking, like, because I watched it every day, when you have 3 channels, you know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? And tinfoil on the top, you know
Tinfoil.
what I mean? This is
Just
way back.
hold it right there.
When they get off the train, and you stop and do like a couple seconds and then get back, I didn't know nothing about yards, I didn't know anything about any of the culture. And so I just started off and I was all by myself. I didn't have any other peers to play with. And so I knew that you weren't supposed to bite, so I wasn't going to take anything out of, by the time I really got going, Subway art was up already. And that was just like the Bible of all these different pieces from New York that were captured at a time when a lot of stuff was getting gone over really quickly. So it was just a time capsule. Every one of those pieces, which are called burners, were captured in that book. And I was inspired, but I knew that I couldn't take anything from it because that's one of the things you just don't do. So for years, I just tried to do my own thing, come up with my own thing, and I was just horrible. When I first started writing, I'd never seen a hip-hop style signature in Boston in my life. So I thought I was the only one writing. It was far from the truth because there were people in JP and other spots who were not only writing, but way more advanced than I was. Like not even close. So that inspired me also, that I knew there was other people out there doing the same thing I was doing.
Shout out to JP.
Elevated platforms and the rooftops of JP and the Hamboldt schoolyard. These pieces cannot be understated or whatever on their impact in Boston. Getting Up everywhere counted, but being seen from Dover to Eggleston is what was happening. If it wasn't getting seen there, that's what it was. I don't care, like, Clicks from Mattapan, he knows what time it was. Getting Up in Mattapan, get up in your neighborhood, like the Click is back is dope. But if that was on a rooftop in JP, that would have been way, you know what I mean? But you still can't take anything away from Click and him pulling that off. I'll tell you the story about that piece later on. So I met this guy, Kaz, and Kaz introduced me to everybody. And he took me to Freeze's house, and I saw like at least 5 black books, maybe more. No pencil outline, just ink, whilst out. In other words, he didn't, you know what I mean? Just go right at it and just fill book after. And I'm just like, the same day he took me to Mattapan to introduce me to Click, who I already met downtown through somebody else. At the time, I was living in Milton, right down the street from the Chronic, which was Click's gallery, and we started hanging out. We did a canvas together. I started looking at his books. That inspired me, but at the same time, even though I know, he's the master, I can't take anything from him. So it's like, you know where you want to be, but at the same time, you can't go there because that's, you know what I mean? You're stepping in somebody else's shoes. Over time, guaranteed I borrowed stuff from a whole bunch of different people. Trying not to do it, you know what I mean? But you can't help it. When you're doing a fill and you see a hot pink next to a green you've never seen before, you can put it in the back of your head, but it's all, you know what I mean? The first time I saw the John Figures work, you can't bite that, but you can't come away from that exhibit and not be like, knowing that that's where it is. Wherever you thought it was, that's not where it is. First time I saw Click's black books, I thought I knew what was happening, but no, I didn't.
How many pieces did he have on the trolley from Ashmont to Mattapan Square? Because that was like his. He owned that.
He did a stock rate.
It was at least 3.
There was something that said, well, I'm gonna swear anyway. It said fuck niggas on there in Milton at one of the trolley line stops. He did a stop rape over that because a woman just got raped, the previous week, and they buffed it instantly.
Wow.
And the fuck nigga has been up there for 2 years.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Can I add a story about Freeze, because he doesn't get brought up enough.
Mhm.
So, I'm in high school, I go to school with this kid, David, and they're from Green Street. We find out that we're cousins. His aunt is my uncle's wife, and we're like, oh, Dominican kid, Salvadorian kid, and they realize that I do graph. And one day he shows up with a small book. Now, this is how way ahead of he was from what you see on the internet now and all that, because now everybody does it. But this was probably 91, 92. And he brings a small 4x4 book, and it's Freeze's book. I think Freeze was doing some time at the time. And I'm going through it, and it's the entire alphabet in wild style. And that to me was like, I'm never gonna make it there. But to your point, I feel like it's not that you're trying to bite, but the influence grows in you.
Yep.
And then it pushes you.
Yep.
And so it's not that you're biting. I think to me biting is like literally copying something.
Yeah,
Like,
we've seen that.
But
It's the equivalent of artistic contemporary.
yeah, exactly.
Like you see that in comics all the time, you see homage covers, like Jack Kirby, the John Romita Sr. might have done a cover back in the day. And then a younger artist may give a nod to like an old school 60s, 70s cover. And in that instance, they're kind of taking the whole format from what they've seen before, but they're adding their own stamp to it.
Yeah.
But it's undeniable that you just spend time around people, that stuff brushes off. I met another OG, the Boston king of graffiti culture, Maze. Maze is actually Click's cousin.
Mm-hmm.
So I met Maze and Click because they were trying to get me into a crew back then called 3CB, Three Crazed Bombers. So they kicked one of their members out for whatever reason. I never got into it. But they actually came to my high school to try to recruit me, the 3CB. So I knew who they were before they came up. Or when they came up, I already knew. We all knew of each other. But it wasn't like they kicked me out, but I just wasn't up enough for them. That piece right there with Cash, God rest his soul, on that platform, that just speaks to me on so many levels because that's really what it was about. And I was talking to John before we started rolling, where, oh, my fault. I was talking to John before we started rolling about, and I mean this with the utmost respect, the Cash was crazy. I mean, there were brothers that would literally walk the elevated orange lines from one station to the next just to bomb the living shit out of it. He was one of those writers. So was Maze, so was Click. Chronic comes to mind. Puma comes to mind.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Puma.
Saint Hang Romeo.
Hang, Romeo, Boa, Knock.
Saint did the first piece on the handball court. It was an orange one right in the center of what would be the TWR side. That was the first one to get done.
Timmy, before you go on,
Yeah.
kind of set the scene for people, like this, people who just know the South End is this, like, take us back, like, what was it like here? Where's the handball court that you're referencing?
Okay, the handball court is, Quest, 1 street over?
Right over there.
Yeah.
Peter's Park.
It used to be called Peters Park.
Yes.
And the significance between that and graffiti in Boston is what makes that wall poignant to me, and it's the only thing that makes sense is because it was on the orange line. When you came out of Dover, you look up and above the Herald, Romeo, Maze, Saint,
Social was up there too. wasn't it?
and I think it was a social up there too.
Social.
Yeah, well, you put an L at the end sometimes.
Oh, okay.
He could write his whole name on a brick, would have stopped it. With room to spare. That's another thing about Boston Can Control versus some of the other places is Boston is black tips for the longest time. Sometimes you and your crew would share a fat cap because there just weren't many around. Because we looked over everything, right? There just wasn't around. So
Household stuff.
when you look at it, if if you ever get a chance to look at the early pieces, like these, look at a start piece, and, of course, some are Click's pieces, but, everybody that wrote with Start, they had the most impeccable can control that they could do with the damn cap that comes on the can. The easy caps didn't come later on until I came back from New York with a handful of them. That was the first time that they were already here, I just didn't know about it. And when I figured it out, I went up to Pearl with AE and Daryl and somebody else, and we cleaned out the whole liquor thing, getting those caps. And,
Can I highlight something real quick?
Sure.
Jamaica Plain, Pimentel's Market. You can tell they usually stocked it because of the way, the style of writing. And so you could tell there was a lot of writers, Mass, Puma, Pucho, there was a whole bunch of cats growing up, Six Pack, there was a bunch of cats there. They had a similar style, but it was because they were forced to write that way because they were using a stock tip. So, when you grow up and you're this tall and you're looking at the tag, you're like, how do they do that? But then you start realizing, oh, the tool's also part of the style.
Yep. Let the can